Have you ever poured your soul into work, sacrificed nights and weekends, only to watch your boss reward everyone else but you? I have. And that morning, I knew I had only two choices: endure the humiliation or show the entire company who really creates value here. Stay with me until the end. Because one phone call in the middle of an all-hands meeting changed my fate. And the company's future forever. My name is Lauren Myers, and at 34, I'd spent the last 8 years building Vega Insight's most profitable client relationships. That Tuesday morning in March, I sat in Conference Room A with 23 other employees, watching CEO Robert Hale parade around with his signature smirk. "Ladies and gentlemen," Robert announced, his Armani suit catching the morning light. "I'm thrilled to share that, thanks to our exceptional Q1 performance, everyone in this room will receive a 20% salary increase." The room erupted in surprised gasps and delighted murmurs. I felt my chest tighten, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Well," Robert's eyes found mine across the polished mahogany table. "Almost everyone, Lauren. Unfortunately, your contributions haven't quite met the threshold for this round of increases. We'll revisit your compensation in 6 months." The air turned arctic. 23 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me, a mixture of pity and secondhand embarrassment painting their faces. My fingers found the edge of the quarterly report I'd submitted just yesterday, the one clearly showing that 42% of this quarter's revenue came directly from accounts I managed. "I understand," I said, my voice steady as granite. Inside, something crystallized, hard and sharp. Sandra from HR shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Marcus from sales suddenly found his coffee cup fascinating. Even Jennifer, who'd started just 6 months ago, couldn't meet my gaze as she processed her unexpected windfall. Robert continued his victory lap, detailing the company's collective achievements while carefully omitting the 16-hour days I'd pulled to secure the Whitmore contract, or the conference calls I'd taken at 3 a.m. to accommodate our European partners. He spoke about team synergy and collaborative success while standing in front of a presentation I'd created, my name conspicuously absent from the credits. The Dumont Industries expansion particularly exemplifies our strategic vision. Robert gestured to a slide showing projected revenues. My stomach clenched. Dumont was my baby. I'd nurtured that relationship from a cold call to our second-largest account over 3 years. "Any questions?" Robert's tone suggested there better not be. I raised my hand. "Just one. The Dumont numbers in that projection, are those based on the preliminary discussions from last week?" Robert's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "They reflect leadership's strategic direction." "I see." I began organizing my papers with deliberate precision. "Because Mark Dumont mentioned some interesting possibilities in our Thursday call that might affect those projections." "We'll discuss offline." Robert cut me off, his practiced smile cracking at the edges. The meeting dissolved into awkward congratulations and hasty exits. I remained seated, studying the report that proved my worth in black and white. 42%. Nearly half the company's quarterly revenue flowing through relationships I'd built. Clients who called my cell phone directly. Deals I'd saved from falling apart. As colleagues filtered past, some squeezed my shoulder in silent support. Others pretended I'd become invisible. Angela from marketing whispered, "This is bullshit, Lauren." Before scurrying away, Robert lingered by the door, watching me with the satisfaction of a cat who'd cornered a mouse. 6 months, Lauren. Show me you're a team player, and we'll talk." I met his gaze, letting him see nothing but professional calm. "Of course, Robert, team player." He left, and I sat alone in the conference room, surrounded by the ghost of my contributions. The morning sun slanted across the table, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like tiny promises of change. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Mark Dumont's contact. His last message still glowed on the screen. "Lauren, we need to discuss something significant. Call when you can." 6 months, Robert had said. I smiled, a small, private thing. He had no idea what was coming. 3 years. That's how long it had been since my last vacation. Not because I couldn't take time off, but because every time I tried, something urgent materialized. The Frankfurt conference that only I could handle, the Singapore client who insisted on dealing exclusively with me, the quarterly reports that somehow always needed my touch before Robert would sign off on them. I joined Vega Insights as a junior analyst, fresh from Wharton with dreams of building something meaningful. The company was smaller then, scrappier. We all worked insane hours, but there was a sense of shared purpose. That changed when Robert took over as CEO 2 years ago, bringing his boys' club mentality and his talent for selective amnesia when it came to crediting work. The Dumont Industries account perfectly exemplified our dynamic. I'd cold called them 3 years ago, spending months building trust with Marc Dumont and his team. I learned French to better understand their business culture. I flew to Paris on my own dime when our travel budget was frozen, turning a courtesy meeting into $1 million contract. When it came time to present to the board, Robert inserted himself as senior strategic advisor on the account. My meticulously crafted presentation became our collaborative effort. My name, which had been on every email, every proposal, every late-night strategy session, somehow vanished from the final documents. You're still learning the executive presence required for client-facing leadership, Robert had explained, patting my shoulder with paternal condescension. I'm protecting you from premature exposure. Protecting me. Right. Like when he protected me from the Goldman Sachs summit by sending Bradley instead, despite the client specifically requesting me. Or when he protected me from the Industry Recognition Award by submitting the nomination under his own name. The pattern was consistent. I'd develop the relationships, create the strategies, solve the crises. Robert would swoop in for the victory lap, always careful to throw me just enough scraps to keep me hungry but never satisfied. A small bonus here. A vague promise of future promotion there. My colleagues saw it, of course. During late nights at the office, they'd share knowing looks when Robert name-dropped his achievements in all-hands meetings. But nobody said anything. Not when Robert controlled their salaries, their promotions, their references for future jobs. The Dumont weekly reports told the real story, every Thursday. I sent comprehensive updates on the account's progress, challenges, and opportunities. Robert's responses were predictably brief. Noted or continue monitoring, or, most frequently, no response at all. I doubted he read past the subject line. What he didn't know was that I'd been keeping meticulous records, every email, every document, every revision history showing how his presentations originated from my drafts. The shared drive might belong to the company, but my personal archive told a different story, one where credit aligned with actual contribution. The workspace I'd cultivated over 8 years bore witness to this systematic erasure. Awards on the wall with Robert's name for campaigns I'd conceived. Press releases quoting him about strategies I'd developed. Team photos where I stood in the back row. The reliable workhorse hidden behind the show ponies. You're too valuable in your current role, Robert had said during my last performance review, denying my promotion request for the 3rd consecutive year. We need your unique skills exactly where you are. Translation: you generate too much revenue for me to risk you having actual authority. But Marc Dumont saw things differently. Over 3 years of partnership, he'd learned who actually answered his calls at midnight, who understood his business challenges, who delivered solutions rather than excuses. While Robert glad-handed at conferences, I was in the trenches, building the trust that turned a modest contract into Vega's 2nd-largest revenue stream. The bitter irony: Robert's contempt for details, the very thing that let him claim credit so easily, had also made him blind to what was brewing. He saw numbers on spreadsheets, not relationships. He saw contracts, not the people behind them. That blindness was about to cost him everything. My phone buzzed before I even reached my office. Marc Dumont's name illuminated the screen, accompanied by a message that made my pulse quicken. Lauren, tried calling during your morning meeting. We have developments that require immediate discussion. Please contact me as soon as possible. I closed my door and dialed his number, still processing the humiliation from conference room A. Lauren, Mark's warm voice carried across the Atlantic. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time? Not at all. Mark, your timing is actually perfect. Excellent. I'll be direct. Dumont Industries is expanding our North American operations significantly. We need someone who understands both our culture and the American market to lead this initiative. He paused. The board unanimously agreed you're the only person we'd consider for this role. I sank into my chair, gripping the phone tighter. I'm honored, Mark. But I'm not sure Vega would. This wouldn't be through Vega, he interrupted gently. We're offering you a position as our Director of International Strategy, $320,000, based in our Boston office with quarterly visits to Paris. The number hung in the air between continents. It was more than double my current salary, the one Robert had just deemed unworthy of a 20% increase. There's more, Mark continued. We're also exploring the acquisition of a strategic partner in the U.S. market. Vega Insights fits our criteria perfectly. The due diligence would begin next month. Pending board approval. My mind raced. An acquisition would mean complete restructuring, new leadership evaluations, everything Robert had built his kingdom on suddenly subject to external scrutiny. Mark, I need to be transparent. There might be some resistance from current leadership. His laugh was knowing. Lauren, I've worked with you for 3 years. I've also worked with Robert for 3 years. We know exactly who drives value in your organization. After ending the call, I sat in the afternoon quiet, processing the seismic shift in my circumstances. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Sandra Chen from HR stood in my doorway, her usually corporate mask slipping to reveal genuine concern. Got a minute? She closed the door behind her, something she never did. That was bullshit this morning. It's fine, Sandra. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. She moved closer, lowering her voice. Listen, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but Robert's planning something for tomorrow's all-hands meeting. He's been working on a presentation about the Dumont expansion all week. Let me guess, his personal vision for strategic growth. Sandra's expression confirmed my suspicion. He's planning to announce it as his signature achievement before the acquisition talks begin. Classic Robert, claim credit before anyone can fact-check. Why are you telling me this? She was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because I've been here 12 years. I've processed every promotion, every resignation, every complaint that gets buried. I've watched talented people leave because of him. And I'm tired of good work being stolen by someone who wouldn't recognize actual leadership if it submitted a weekly report. What exactly is he planning? Full presentation to staff and the board tomorrow at 10. He's positioning himself as the architect of the Dumont relationship, the visionary who saw the potential. Her smile turned sharp. He even created slides showing his strategic intervention points in the account's growth. I thought about Mark's offer, about the acquisition possibility, about 3 years of stolen credit finally coming home to roost. Sandra, what if I told you things might be about to change significantly? Her eyes brightened with interest. I'd say it's about time someone played chess while Robert's still playing checkers. We spent the next hour in careful conversation, Sandra sharing details about tomorrow's meeting while I hinted at the shifting tides. By the time she left, we had an understanding, not quite a plan, but the framework for one. That evening, I drafted 2 emails, one to Mark confirming my interest in his offer, and another to myself, documenting the day's events with meticulous detail. Tomorrow, Robert would stand before the company and claim my work as his own. He just didn't know it would be the last time. The all-hands meeting began at precisely 10 o'clock. Robert stood at the podium in his best suit, the conference room packed with employees and several board members joining virtually on the main screen. I chose a seat in the middle row, my phone face down on the table, volume turned up just enough. Today marks a pivotal moment in Vega's history, Robert began, clicking to his first slide, a graph showing the Dumont account's exponential growth. Through strategic leadership and my personal relationship with European markets, we've transformed a modest opportunity into our crown jewel. I watched him weave his fiction with practiced ease. According to his narrative, he'd identified Dumont's potential during a chance encounter at a Zurich conference. He'd personally cultivated Mark Dumont through executive-level strategic sessions. Each slide erased my existence more thoroughly than the last. The key breakthrough, Robert continued, pointing to a timeline I recognized from my own presentations, came when I restructured our approach to align with Dumont's continental expansion goals. Several colleagues glanced my way. Jennifer from accounting actually winced. They all knew who'd spent those late nights on Dumont calls, who Mark asked for by name, who'd saved the account when shipping delays nearly tanked our first major deliverable. Moving forward, Robert clicked to his final slides. I'll be personally shepherding the relationship as we enter this critical expansion phase. My vision for... My phone rang. The distinctive international ringtone cut through his monologue like a blade. Mark Dumont's name blazed across the screen. I'm so sorry, I said, reaching for the phone. It's Mark Dumont. He said it was urgent. Robert's face cycled through several colors. Perhaps you could... He insisted I take his call immediately. I stood, finger hovering over the answer button. Should I tell him you're in the middle of presenting about his account? Or... The room held its breath. Robert's jaw worked soundlessly before he managed. No. Please, take the call. I'll just put him on speaker so I don't have to leave. I swiped to answer before Robert could object. Good morning, Mark. Lauren, perfect timing. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I met Robert's frozen stare. Actually, you're calling during our all-hands meeting. Robert was just discussing the Dumont account. Ah, excellent. Then everyone can hear our wonderful news together. Mark's enthusiasm filled the room. Lauren, the board has approved everything we discussed. The offer stands at $320,000 for the Director of International Strategy position. We need your answer by Monday. The silence was deafening. Someone dropped a pen. It sounded like a gunshot. Additionally, Mark continued, oblivious to the chaos he was creating. We're formally announcing our intention to acquire Vega Insights. The board was particularly impressed by your detailed analysis of synergies between our organizations. Your insight that Vega's structure would benefit from fresh leadership aligned perfectly with our vision. Board members on the screen leaned forward. Robert's face had transcended red and achieved a shade of purple I'd never seen in nature. Mark, I said clearly, I'm honored by the offer. However, Robert was just explaining his central role in our partnership. Perhaps he should be part of these discussions. Mark's pause was telling. With respect, Lauren, Dumont Industries prefers to work with people who deliver results, not those who simply take credit for them. We've made our choice. The question is whether you'll accept it. I'll need to review the full offer, of course. Naturally, I'm flying to Boston tomorrow. Dinner at 8? We can discuss your transition and your recommendations for Vega's restructuring under new ownership. That would be perfect. Excellent. Oh, and Lauren, congratulations on your promotion. It's long overdue. The line went dead. I set my phone down gently in the cathedral silence. Every eye in the room ping-ponged between Robert and me. The board members on screen were typing furiously, likely messaging each other. Well, I said, returning to my seat. Please continue with your presentation. Robert. I believe you were explaining your vision for the account. Robert stood at the podium, his carefully crafted narrative in smoking ruins, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. The architect of his own destruction, destroyed by a single phone call. The meeting was far from over, but the power in the room had already shifted, and everyone knew it. The meeting dissolved into chaos within minutes. Board members demanded an immediate executive session, employees scattered like startled birds. And Robert? Robert looked like a man watching his house burn down. He caught my arm as I moved toward the door. My office. Now. I followed him down the hallway, aware of dozens of eyes tracking our progress through the glass walls. His corner office, with its panoramic view of Boston Harbor and walls lined with awards bearing his name for my work, felt smaller than usual. Robert slammed the door and spun to face me. What the hell did you do? I took a phone call, I replied evenly, settling into one of his leather chairs. You seemed eager for everyone to hear about Dumont. Don't play games with me, Lauren. He loosened his tie with jerky movements. That acquisition talk, you've been negotiating behind my back? Behind your back? I laughed, actually laughed. Robert, I've sent you weekly reports for 3 years. You've ignored every single one. How is that behind your back? His face contorted. You work for me. Everything you do represents this company, my leadership. Interesting interpretation. Is that what you'll tell the board when they ask why Dumont's CEO refuses to work with you? Robert circled his desk like a caged predator. You think you've won something here? I'll bury you. No reference, no recommendation. I'll make sure everyone knows you're a backstabbing. Careful, I interrupted. Threats aren't your strong suit. He leaned forward, planting his palms on the desk. I made you. Everything you've achieved has been under my guidance, my mentorship. Your mentorship? I stood, matching his posture. You mean taking credit for my work, blocking my promotions, denying me a raise while using my revenue numbers to justify your bonus? That's business, sweetheart. Maybe if you understood that. I understand perfectly. I pulled out my phone, opening a folder labeled Documentation. Like this email where you removed my name from the Whitmore proposal. Or this one, where you claimed my Barcelona strategy as your executive vision. Oh, and my personal favorite, the board presentation where you literally copied and pasted my analysis, forgetting to remove my metadata from the file. The color drained from his face. You've been collecting 3 years of evidence, Robert. Every stolen idea, every revised document, every time you've presented my work as your own. All time-stamped, all verified, all waiting for the right moment. That's corporate espionage. No, it's called keeping receipts. Something you'd know if you ever actually did the work yourself. Robert sank into his chair, the fight suddenly leaving him. What do you want? What do I want? I moved toward the door. Yesterday, I wanted a fair raise. Recognition for my contributions. Basic professional respect. And now? I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Now? I want to watch you explain to the board how you lost the Dumont account, how you've been taking credit for work you couldn't even understand, let alone execute, how your leadership has created a culture where your best performers are jumping ship the moment better opportunities arise. Lauren, wait. His voice cracked. We can work this out. 20% raise. No, 30. The VP title you wanted. Just don't do this. Yesterday, that might have mattered. I opened the door. But you taught me something valuable this morning. Robert, my contributions haven't quite met the threshold. Remember, guess I'll have to contribute somewhere else. You'll regret this, he called after me, desperation bleeding into threat. The acquisition might not even happen. You'll be unemployed, and I'll make sure. Robert? I turned back one last time. Mark Dumont has been planning this acquisition for 18 months. He just needed someone on the inside he could trust. Someone who actually knows how this company operates, not just how to take credit for its success. The realization hit him like a physical blow. You've been doing my job, yes? Protecting the company's actual interests instead of your ego? Also, yes. I smiled. Enjoy your board meeting. I'm sure they'll have lots of questions about your strategic vision for an account that's about to own this company. I left him there, slumped in his executive chair, surrounded by the trappings of borrowed success. The real meeting, the one that would determine Vega's future, was just beginning. The board meeting convened at 2 o'clock sharp. I'd been summoned as a key witness, though we all knew I was really there to drive the final nail into Robert's coffin. The boardroom felt different now, charged with the electricity of impending change. Present were 5 board members in person, 3 virtual, and representatives from Dumont Industries who'd flown in that morning. Mark Dumont himself sat at the far end, his silver hair and calm demeanor a stark contrast to Robert's increasingly erratic energy. "Ms. Myers," Board Chair Patricia Steinberg began, "we need to understand the full scope of your involvement with the Dumont account." I opened my laptop, connecting it to the presentation system. "I'll show you exactly what my involvement has been." The first slide displayed the original cold call log from 3 years ago. I initiated contact with Dumont Industries on March 15, 2022. Here's the call record, the follow-up emails, and the 16-week cultivation process that led to our first contract. Robert shifted in his seat. "Those were under my directive." "Let her finish." Patricia cut him off. I clicked through slides methodically. Email chains with my name. Proposals with tracked changes showing my original work versus Robert's revisions, which usually meant adding his name and removing mine. Financial projections I'd built from scratch. Crisis management when shipments went sideways, all handled during my supposed vacation time. "This is particularly relevant," I said, displaying a split screen. On the left, my original presentation for the Q3 expansion strategy. On the right, the version Robert presented to you last quarter. You'll notice they're identical except for the author attribution. Board members exchanged glances. Mark Dumont wore the faintest smile. "But the most critical evidence," I continued, "is this email chain from last month." The screen showed Robert's response to my urgent warning about a competitor trying to poach Dumont. "Not a priority. Handle it yourself if you're concerned." "I handled it," I said simply. That's when Mark and I began discussing how to protect the partnership long-term. Patricia leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, how do you respond to this?" Robert stood, attempting to reclaim his commanding presence. "This is a coordinated attack on my leadership. Yes, Lauren has been a valuable contributor, but she's presenting a skewed narrative. Leadership isn't about who sends emails or makes spreadsheets. It's about vision, strategy. Perhaps you could share your strategic vision for Dumont Industries." Mark spoke for the first time, his accented English cutting through Robert's bluster. "I'm curious, since we've never actually discussed strategy directly." "We've had numerous interactions." "Name one." Mark's tone remained pleasant. "One strategic discussion you and I have had without Lauren present." The silence stretched. Robert's mouth worked, but nothing emerged. "The truth," Mark continued, "is that I've met you exactly 3 times. Cocktail parties where you couldn't remember my company's primary business. Meanwhile, Lauren has become so integral to our operations that my team considers her part of Dumont, not Vega." "This is ridiculous," Robert exploded. "I'm the CEO. Every success under my leadership is built on the work of people you refuse to acknowledge," I interrupted, pulling up my final slide. "This is a list of employees who've left Vega in the past 2 years. 32 talented professionals, all citing limited growth opportunities in their exit interviews. What they meant was they were tired of watching you steal credit for their work. How dare you? How dare I what? Document the truth? Refuse to let you claim my achievements? Stand up when you tried to humiliate me in front of the entire company?" I met his gaze steadily. "You created this situation. Robert, I'm just shining a light on it." Patricia Steinberg cleared her throat. "Mr. Dumont, given these revelations, does your acquisition offer still stand?" "Absolutely," Mark replied. "In fact, it reinforces our decision. Vega has exceptional talent. It merely needs leadership that recognizes and nurtures that talent instead of exploiting it." "I've built this company," Robert started. "No," Patricia interrupted. "You've managed it. There's a difference. And based on what we've seen today, it's time for a change in that management." Board members huddled in whispered conference. Robert stood isolated, his empire crumbling in real time. I closed my laptop. My evidence delivered. My point made. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Robert would transition to a temporary advisory role, effective immediately. The search for new leadership would begin during the acquisition process. As the meeting adjourned, Robert brushed past me. His whispered, "You'll regret this," barely audible. I doubted that very much. 6 weeks later, I stood in the same conference room A where Robert had denied my raise. But everything else had changed. The oppressive atmosphere that used to permeate these walls had lifted, replaced by something I hadn't felt at Vega in years. Hope. Marc Dumont had offered me the international position. But after long discussions, we'd agreed on something better. I would stay at Vega as Chief Strategy Officer during the transition, helping to rebuild the culture while maintaining the client relationships I'd cultivated. The salary was even higher than his original offer. But more importantly, I had a voice in shaping our future. Robert's departure was swift and silent. No farewell party, no golden parachute, just a cardboard box and a security escort. The advisory role had lasted exactly 1 week before mutual agreement ended it. Word traveled fast in Boston's business community. Last I heard, he was consulting independently, which everyone knew meant unemployed and untouchable. The real transformation happened in the everyday moments. Team meetings where people eagerly shared ideas without fear of credit theft, project reports with accurate attribution, employees who'd been shadows suddenly shining with innovative solutions they'd been too afraid to voice before. Sandra, promoted to VP of Human Resources, implemented a transparent review system that made it impossible for anyone to claim another's work. The Robert Hale Memorial Policy, she called it privately, though officially it was the Collaborative Attribution Framework. Jennifer from accounting, who'd been so uncomfortable during that fateful raise meeting, stopped by my office last week. "I never thanked you," she said, "for showing us it was possible to fight back." "You don't need to thank me," I replied. "Just promise me you'll never let anyone steal your voice." The Dumont acquisition proceeded smoothly, with Marc's team impressed by how quickly Vega's true capabilities emerged once the toxic leadership was removed. Client retention hit record highs. Employee satisfaction scores soared. Turns out, people do their best work when they know they'll be recognized for it. During our integration meetings, Marc pulled me aside. "You know, Lauren, you could have simply taken our offer and left. Why stay and fight?" I thought about all the talented people who'd suffered under Robert's regime, all the voices silenced, all the achievements stolen. Because leaving would have meant he won, and everyone who came after me would have faced the same thing. "You risked everything on one phone call." "No," I corrected him. "I risked everything the moment I decided my work had value. The phone call was just the catalyst." Today, Vega Insights operates as Dumont Vega International, a company where contribution equals recognition, where leadership means lifting others up, not standing on their shoulders. My office, yes, I have a corner office now, overlooks the same harbor Robert used to survey like a king viewing his domain. But I don't see territory to conquer. I see possibilities to explore. Sometimes junior employees ask me about the old days, treating the story like corporate mythology. They can't imagine a workplace where your ideas could be stolen so brazenly, where your worth could be dismissed so publicly. It really happened, I tell them. And it could happen again if we're not vigilant. The 42% revenue figure that Robert had ignored? Under transparent leadership, my team now drives 60% of company revenue, not because I'm special, but because when people feel valued, they create value. Last month, I received an unexpected LinkedIn message. Robert, reaching out to clear the air and explore potential synergies. I archived it without responding. Some bridges deserve to stay burned. As I write this, sitting in an office I earned through years of unrecognized excellence, I think about everyone still trapped in their own versions of Vega's toxic past. Still watching their work stolen, their contributions minimized, their worth questioned by those who couldn't create value if their lives depended on it. To them, I say this: document everything, build your networks, know your worth. And when the moment comes, when that phone rings or that opportunity appears, don't hesitate. Your contributions matter. Your voice deserves to be heard. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just success, it's the truth, delivered at exactly the right moment. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts and experiences. Your story matters too.